colonists needed to go through the 4 stages of cooperation. We'll start with stage 1. The colonists gathered to discuss common problems. The Albany Congress. One of the first times the 13 colonies tried to work together was in 1754 during the early part of the French and Indian War. At that time, most British colonies were friendly with Britain and were upset that Britain was not winning the war with the French. This was before the Revolutionary War. The French and Indian War was not going well for the British. 7 colonies sent representatives to Albany, New York, to meet and discuss the situation. Representatives are people sent to a meeting to speak and vote in place of a group who sent them. That meeting was known as the Albany Congress. At the Albany Congress, 3 important things happened. These 3 important things were: the representatives invited the Iroquois Confederacy to the meeting. The representatives proposed a plan, and Ben Franklin proposed the Albany Plan of Union. Let's go through them one at a time. The representatives invited the Iroquois Confederacy to the meeting. First, the representatives invited the Iroquois Confederacy to the meeting. The representatives wanted to talk with the Iroquois Confederacy because the Iroquois were neutral and not taking sides during the French and Indian War. The representatives asked the Iroquois Confederacy to become British allies during their war with the French. The French were also working to get the Iroquois involved in the war on their side. Second, the representatives proposed a plan for having the militias from all 13 colonies join together and fight against the French and their Native American allies. The idea of joining together for defense was an idea the colonists got from the Iroquois. The representatives thought that if the different colonies could join together like the 5 tribes of the Iroquois Confederacy had done for many years, Britain could win the French and Indian War. Third, Ben Franklin invented a plan for the 13 colonies to join together in an organization called the Albany Plan of Union. All the representatives at the Albany Congress voted for the Albany Plan of Union. They decided that the plan should be considered by the legislatures of all the colonies. A legislator is an elected group of representatives who can make laws. The legislatures who would consider whether to vote to ratify the plan. Ratify means to formally agree to a plan, usually by voting on it. Before the Albany Plan of Union could go into effect, it had to be ratified by the legislatures of all the colonies. At the Albany Congress, the colonies were in the first stage of cooperation. They were simply gathered to discuss common problems. The colonies had never cooperated with each other before. Because Ben Franklin's Albany Plan of Union required legally binding cooperation, the colonies would have to get ready to agree to stage 4 cooperation. They weren't ready because the Albany Plan of Union was skipping 2 stages of cooperation. So the Albany Plan fails. Although the representatives get over here. No? So you can see it. There we go. Although the representatives liked the Albany Plan of Union, none of the colonial legislatures voted that the plan to unite the 13 colonies should work. Why? Because none of the leaders of the colonial legislators was ready to cooperate. The colonial leaders did not want to create a single central government that had control over things that each colony was in control of, such as taxes and trade. During that time, the colonial leaders were in the first stage of cooperation, and they weren't ready to work together. The colonial leaders would have to get used to voluntary cooperating with each other before they might be willing to cooperate on a regular basis. Only after cooperating regularly would anyone be ready to give up any of their independence and become part of a united government. Also, the colonial leaders may have believed that Britain, their mother country, would protect them, so they didn't really have to work together at all. As you may remember, later in the French and Indian War, the British put a great deal more effort into winning the war by spending more money and sending more troops, so the British won the war without help from the colonial militias. Afterward, the British wanted the 13 colonies to pay the debts caused by the French and Indian War, and that desire led to much tension between the Britain and its colonies.